Korean Peninsula, 2:34 p.m. Clear afternoon skies. A routine training exercise was about to trigger the most devastating counterstrike in DMZ history. 200 United States Marines from 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines were conducting standard defensive drills with South Korean forces. The location, just 500 meters from one of the world's most dangerous borders. These exercises had been performed countless times before without incident. Then, without any warning signs, 18 North Korean 170mm self-propelled howitzers opened fire from fortified positions. Within 90 seconds, 47 shells rained down on the training ground. The explosions were devastating. 6 American Marines were wounded by shrapnel. 4 South Korean soldiers sustained injuries. Military equipment was obliterated. Pyongyang's calculation was simple. Create tension, receive international condemnation, then watch everything return to normal. This pattern had repeated for decades along the demilitarized zone. But North Korea made catastrophic errors in judgment. Those Marines weren't operating in isolation. 8 AH-64 Apache attack helicopters were positioned just 3 kilometers away on immediate standby. United States 8th Army headquarters had sophisticated counter-battery radar systems tracking every North Korean artillery position in real time. The attack occurred during perfect daylight conditions, providing optimal targeting for retaliation. Most critically, American and South Korean forces had spent years awaiting authorization to permanently neutralize those artillery threats. The moment those shells impacted American forces, North Korea triggered the largest coordinated counter-artillery operation in Korean Peninsula history. What transpired in the following 41 minutes fundamentally altered the artillery balance along the DMZ. The Korean demilitarized zone stretches 4 kilometers wide and 250 kilometers long, making it Earth's most heavily fortified border. North Korea maintains over 13,000 artillery pieces and rocket launchers positioned along this boundary. Many are aimed directly at Seoul, located just 50 kilometers away, placing 30 million people within strike range. For 7 decades, these weapons had remained mostly silent threats and occasional provocations, but rarely actual fire. At 11 a.m. that morning, Marines arrived at a training facility near the border for joint exercises with South Korean forces. Colonel James Reeves briefed his troops about maintaining professionalism in this sensitive area. This was supposed to be a standard training day with no live ammunition. At 2:15 p.m., American counter-battery radar detected unusual movement on the North Korean side. Artillery pieces were repositioning near the DMZ. Intelligence analysts noted this activity but didn't consider it immediately threatening, as North Korea frequently conducted artillery drills. At 2:28 p.m., 18 North Korean Coxswain-type artillery pieces rolled into firing positions. These powerful weapons have a range of 60 kilometers and were now aimed southward toward the training ground. At 2:34 p.m., North Korean artillery fired. The first shell landed 200 meters from Marine positions. The second fell closer. The third scored a direct hit on the equipment area. Marines immediately sought cover as shells continued falling. Shrapnel filled the air. Body armor saved lives, but 6 Marines were wounded. 4 South Korean soldiers were also injured. After 90 seconds and 47 shells, the North Korean artillery went silent. At 2:36 p.m., Colonel Reeves transmitted an urgent message requesting medical evacuation and authorization for counter-battery fire. The response from 8th Army headquarters came within 20 seconds. Medical evacuation inbound. Counter-battery authorization approved. Engaging now. While those shells were still airborne, American radar systems had tracked their trajectories, calculated exact launch points, and identified every North Korean artillery piece involved. 18 positions with precise GPS coordinates were locked in. At 2:37 p.m., 8 Apache helicopters received targeting data and launch authorization. At 2:38 p.m., 4 South Korean K9 Thunder self-propelled howitzers received fire orders. At 2:39 p.m., 6 American M142 HIMARS rocket artillery systems locked onto their designated coordinates. At 2:40 p.m., the counterstrike commenced. But this response wasn't limited to the 18 guns that had fired. American and South Korean intelligence had been tracking North Korean artillery positions throughout this DMZ sector for years. Every bunker, tunnel, ammunition depot, and command post had been cataloged. 9 major artillery bases, 73 individual artillery pieces, 15 ammunition storage facilities, and 6 command bunkers, all within 40 kilometers of the attack site. Authorization from United States Indo-Pacific Command was explicit. Eliminate the North Korean artillery threat in this sector permanently. At 2:41 p.m., 48 Hellfire missiles launched from Apache helicopters with laser-guided precision. At 2:42 p.m., South Korean K-9 Thunder howitzers opened fire with GPS-guided munitions. At 2:43 p.m., HIMARS systems launched their guided rockets. At 2:44 p.m., the first Hellfire missiles struck their targets. Direct impacts on the self-propelled howitzers created massive explosions. The ammunition inside these artillery pieces detonated catastrophically. All 18 North Korean howitzers that fired on Marines were destroyed within 45 seconds. But the counterstrike was accelerating. At 2:45 p.m., 6 F-16 Fighting Falcons from Ozan Air Base arrived carrying laser-guided bombs. Their mission: destroy all artillery installations in the sector, not just the guns that had fired. At 2:46 p.m., 24 precision-guided bombs struck North Korean Artillery Base Alpha, the headquarters for this artillery sector. Command bunkers collapsed, barracks were destroyed, and the ammunition depot exploded in a fireball visible for 20 kilometers. At 2:47 p.m., Artillery Base Bravo was hit. 4 more bombs obliterated the maintenance facility and destroyed 15 artillery pieces undergoing repair. At 2:48 p.m., 8 South Korean F-15 K-Strike Eagles arrived carrying 64 precision bombs. At 2:49 p.m., Artillery Base Charlie, a major ammunition storage complex, was struck by 8 bombs. The resulting explosion created a chain reaction as thousands of artillery shells detonated. Seismic sensors registered this as a magnitude 2.1 earthquake. A crater 50 meters wide was all that remained. At 2:51 p.m., HIMARS systems fired a second salvo targeting North Korean artillery tunnels. These precision strikes collapsed tunnel entrances, trapping artillery pieces inside. At 2:53 p.m., 8 additional Apache helicopters arrived, bringing the total to 16. Working systematically in pairs, they destroyed every identified artillery position with Hellfire missiles. At 2:55 p.m., a B-1B Lancer bomber released 16 2,000-pound bombs designed to destroy hardened targets. At 2:57 p.m., North Korean artillery base hotel positioned in a fortified mountain complex was obliterated. Underground bunkers collapsed, and the mountain itself was reshaped by the explosions. By 3 p.m., all 9 North Korean artillery bases in this DMZ sector had been struck. At 3:02 p.m., Apache helicopters began secondary strikes against observation posts, radar installations, and communications towers. At 3:08 p.m., 6 A-10 Thunderbolt aircraft arrived to destroy any North Korean military vehicles attempting to escape. At 3:15 p.m., 41 minutes after North Korea fired their first shell, the operation concluded. The results were devastating for North Korea. 9 artillery bases destroyed, 73 artillery pieces eliminated, 15 ammunition depots obliterated, 6 command bunkers collapsed, estimated 467 casualties. Allied losses during the counterstrike, 0. Within hours, North Korean state media claimed they had conducted a routine drill with only minor equipment damage. They made no mention of the destroyed bases or casualties, but satellite imagery revealed the truth. Commercial satellites photographed 9 North Korean artillery bases burning, with collapsed bunkers and cratered facilities visible from space. The Pentagon statement was factual. North Korean forces fired artillery at American Marines. We responded by eliminating the threat. 9 installations no longer possess the capability to threaten Allied forces. For 70 years, North Korean artillery aimed at Seoul has been South Korea's nightmare scenario. Operation Steel Thunder demonstrated that these positions can be located, targeted, and destroyed with devastating precision. North Korea lost 9 artillery bases in 41 minutes. The message was unmistakable. Any artillery position can be eliminated if they fire first. The strategic implications were profound. North Korea's artillery threat has always been their conventional deterrent, thousands of guns aimed at Seoul, with the assumption that Allied forces could eliminate them quickly enough to prevent mass casualties. This operation challenged that assumption entirely. China watched carefully but remained silent. Russia offered no comment. Most importantly, North Korea didn't retaliate or escalate because they understood the consequences. The 6 wounded Marines recovered fully and returned to duty. The South Korean soldiers also recovered without permanent injuries. The training ground was repaired within 10 days. The North Korean artillery bases remained destroyed and non-functional. That's the asymmetry of modern precision warfare. 2:34 p.m. North Korea fires 47 shells at American Marines. 3:15 p.m. 9 artillery bases destroyed. 73 guns eliminated. 467 casualties. Allied casualties during the counterstrike, 0. North Korea believed they could fire at American forces and face minimal consequences. Instead, they learned that attacking Marines means losing artillery capability permanently. 41 minutes. 9 bases silenced forever. The DMZ artillery balance fundamentally changed. This is what precision retaliation looks like in modern warfare.